welcome back to another week. Going to be talking about social media this week. Going to be talking about like how to market our kind of small, crafty businesses using social media. So soon after starting my small business, I, like many people, decided to open a social media account, an Instagram account, with the purpose of that account being to advertise my brand. There might not seem like anything wrong with that. Obviously, that's kind of all what we're thinking at first, what we're planning to do. But I was actually thinking about it completely the wrong way. And therefore, I really didn't do well on Instagram at all for at least the first year. I was kind of stuck in that thing, like doing all those classic things, kind of where Instagram says, oh, add people to gain more followers. So you kind of add whoever they suggest. Like post consistently. I was posting like pretty consistently, a fair amount. I think that advice, be consistent, it's obviously like the one piece of advice that you'll just hear all the time in terms of social media. It's kind of, I feel like it's both the best and worst advice simultaneously. Because if you're consistently posting the wrong stuff, you're just going to get nowhere. But you kind of, for me, I was thinking, oh, well, if being consistent is the thing, like you just have to keep going and then like one day it'll happen. Like, but no, you need to be consistently posting the right stuff. Sounds kind of obvious, but yeah, so first year I'd probably like scraped 600 very not engaged followers. You know, I'd get kind of the same 13 likes on each post. It was kind of, you know, I don't know if you know, but like those spammy kind of comments like promote your post here or something, and that was kind of all I was getting. No sales whatsoever from Instagram. I think I'd kind of came onto it thinking it's the internet, so you post something on the internet and everyone sees it, and then had this very swift like fall to earth and gosh, actually no, you post something and nobody sees it. So that went on for a while, and then there came a point where I realised that if I wanted to stand any chance of making my business work at all, then I had to do the internet thing. Like I wasn't really feeling the markets and other stuff. I knew there was a big opportunity on the internet, and I knew that I could see people doing it. I could see people doing really well and growing. I knew that it was possible and that I could do it. I just had to kind of figure out where I was going wrong and what to do. So I did a lot of research, I tried a lot of things, and then essentially kind of just changed my whole approach to social media, and it really paid off. So yeah, after kind of doing really badly, scraping 600 followers who probably none of them actually even saw my post, to the following year gaining like 30,000 followers, and not just the number, but like they were so engaged, or they still are, which meant they were commenting and messaging and basically in the end telling me what they wanted from a social media account, which was like absolutely golden. And I ended up that year just making all of my sales through Instagram, to the point where I'm now going to move from Etsy to my own website because I don't make any sales through Etsy now. So yeah, within this year I've just learned so much, which is great because that means that now that I can share all of that with you, and hopefully if you're at the place when I was at, like you might not even be doing like that badly, but hopefully this will help. So when I say that my approach to Instagram was all wrong at the beginning because I wanted to use it to advertise my business, it was wrong because I was very much thinking about how I wanted to use Instagram. What I wasn't thinking about was how the vast amount of people who use Instagram, so not the people like me and you who do, like, we initially get the account so that we can use it for this purpose to advertise our business, but the people who just log on every day, they're not really posting themselves, they are the audience. So I never really thought, what do they use it for? Why are they logging on every day? So thinking about this was like a big help and a big revelation. It made me make a lot of changes myself. And so from researching, I found out that the posts that do well on Instagram, and you may have came across this yourself, there's kind of like 4 main types of posts that do well. And it is either relatable, stuff that people can relate to, stuff that people find educational, stuff that people find just entertaining, or stuff that people find inspiring. These are the kind of posts that do well on Instagram. So you can see here that none of these are saying people want to be advertised to, or they want to be shown products that they can buy and purchase. So people aren't logging on for that reason. And in actual fact, Because you can tell, I don't know if you know this, but if you look on your insights, you can tell when your audience is online the most. And mine's very much in the evening. You kind of think, well, do you know what? It's probably a lot to do with people watching TV or relaxing in the evening. And when the adverts come on, they probably whip their phone out and look on Instagram because they want to continue being entertained. They don't want to see the adverts. And so the last thing we really want to do is show them some adverts, because you can bet your bottom dollar really that our adverts, my advert of me putting a bag up and saying, I made this bag this week, I really love the colours, available on my website, is probably downright less interesting than the high budget adverts on TV. So I don't really stand a chance with that kind of post. And these were some of the kind of posts I was posting before. Now, when I say your posts need to be kind of educational and relatable or any of them, like, you don't need to pick one and then try and make content around that. I feel like I actually kind of stumbled across what really worked, not by accident, but by having like really not a lot of time at all, because it kind of meant I had to start thinking outside the box in terms of what I could post. So where I had very little time and I make bags, I could only really realistically make one bag a week. And at this time I thought that I had to post 7 times a week. And so therefore I thought, well, with the best will in the world, I'm not going to be able to like get 7 interesting posts out of one bag. I could get some nice pictures of it. I could get me talking about it, and I could possibly get some shots of me making it. That's 3. I'm gonna need 4 more posts from, like, what am I gonna do there? So I really had to start thinking, okay, well, what can I post that's not to do with the bags? And so I just started brainstorming, started thinking, okay, well, actually I've got a lot of vintage fabrics, that's what I make the bags out of. Maybe I could talk about some of them. Maybe I could talk about some bags that I'd made previously, some favorite ones or something. Anything and everything, I was just thinking, like brainstorming, writing it down, because I needed 4 extra posts a week from what I thought was nothing. In actual fact, the first post that did really well for me, which was like my first viral post, was one where I was talking about some fabrics and had nothing to do with my bags, where I thought I was just posting like filler posts. These were the posts that were actually starting to do really well for me. And so I kind of realized, thinking about it, that I was showing people what I was really doing. And by doing what I was previously doing, which was like showing a picture of an end result of a made bag with a caption, which I'll tell you now that absolutely nobody reads these captions. The amount of times I put pictures of my bags up before I do a bag drop and say the date and time of it, and the amount of messages I say, when are these bags going up for sale? People do not read the captions. So where I was putting a finished picture of a bag up and writing made with vintage fabrics, I wasn't really showing anyone anything apart from a bag. I was not telling them the story, the who, what, where, why I was making it, any of these things. And these are the things that people find interesting. These are the things that people engage in. And this is what people want to see. The next reel that did really well for me really cemented kind of this. Before this, because I'll tell you something as well, is like after a reel goes a bit viral, it will then settle down again, hopefully to like a bit more than you were before, but it will still settle down. And after that madness, you can start feeling a little bit like, oh, what am I doing wrong now? Like, it was going so well, what am I doing wrong? Although looking at this kind of stats and everything, I was still growing and I was still doing well. I just didn't feel like it. So I started overanalyzing things and thinking, because where I was so short for time, I literally just stick the camera on when my son had fallen asleep and like, no makeup, barely washed my hair probably. I was unhappy about that. My nails, I started thinking about all these things, like I'm in a room in the middle of my house, I've got no windows, the lighting's terrible, the sound is terrible, you could always hear like shh in the background. I wasn't using a microphone or anything. So I was like, I remember writing notes, I need to wear makeup, do my nails, get some lighting, like all these things I was thinking were important. And when I was looking on YouTube to see how to market your thing, a lot of these videos I found were aimed at content creators, which I think it's kind of, in some ways it's different rules, because yes, maybe your videos do need to be a bit flasher and a bit thing when, it's all about that. But for us, luckily, I don't think that's the case at all. And the next video that I did, again, came about by accident, no way of knowing when these things are going to happen. But I'd first bought this bag of rags and I did a video about that, and I think I'd recorded it a bit previously, thinking I'll record this before I open the bag, so then when I've made something, I've already got that. One day I didn't have anything to post, so I posted that recording, and everyone was saying, open the rag bag, open the rag bag, we want to see what's inside. My partner was like, what? I wanted to make a really nice bag out of this bag of rags that I'd bought. And I was thinking, okay, well, thinking about the bag in my head and everything, kind of not really realising what I'd figured out before, that people want to see the story, the unfolding of events and everything. I then thought, okay, well, it's going to be a while before I make this bag. So in between, I'll just film a bit of what I'm doing, making it, just to kind of keep the ball rolling until the end, the bonanza, when I make this amazing bag, which is what people will be interested to see, surely. And so I didn't bother with, I'd been, started trying to make lighting better and trying to look better and turning my phone around to use the back camera because it's better. I didn't bother with any of that because I was like, this is just a filler reel, to kind of post in between what I thought was going to be my good one. This reel, I had no makeup on, whatever. I didn't do anything to look any different. I used the front phone of my camera, which apparently isn't very good. All these things, posted that. It went absolutely crazy. The lighting was terrible. It was winter, By all accounts, a very badly produced reel. It went bananas. Like, I posted it, and after a few days, I was like gaining 2,000 followers a day. I was thinking, I don't get it. And then, of course, no one was interested when I, the next week, posted the picture of the bag I'd made from it. It didn't matter that the quality of the video was absolutely pants. Like, none of that mattered. It was just very much, because I was receiving a lot of messages, and it was just, I love how like normal this is, It was all along the same lines of people were really appreciating that there was just a normal person doing something normal in the house, or not normal, whatever. People just found that very engaging and very interesting. And it does make sense when you think about it, that seeing someone do something is a lot more interesting than just seeing the end result. And when you think about it, actually think about all the TV programs, like, let's just say, if you're in the UK, Grand Designs. Imagine if the program was just, let's go and see this house that someone's made, and they just walked around it, literally the end of the program. What we really want to see is them buying the house, them having all the ups and downs in the middle, doing it up, going over budget, doing whatever, all the interesting bits of it actually happening, and then they'll show us the house at the end, like Escape to the Chateau, another one. Sorry if you don't watch any of these programs, but it's the story, it's them buying the chateau, it's them doing it up, it's a constant story that you're watching. You're not just watching, look what I've already done. It's available on my website. Next point I want to make about kind of how to do well on social media is all about being really clear, and that confusion is basically the enemy of the internet. So as we probably know by now, every site we use, be it kind of Instagram, YouTube, Etsy, they all have an algorithm, a built-in kind of algorithm. I remember when I first joined Instagram, it was the first time I'd really heard of the word algorithm. I didn't know what it was. And it had obviously a time when they'd had one of these big, massive algorithm changes. They happen all the time, but this one was, I think, like a big one because Kim Kardashian was moaning about it or what have you. And everyone was really outraged, it seemed, on Instagram. It really put me off it for a while because I was like, what is this? People were kind of putting like middle finger up to the algorithm and making weird posts saying, here's your content, your Instagram. Like, it was all very angry and very weird. And there was this sense of there's just no hope now because the algorithm's a beast. I think you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you think like that, because that gives all the power and all the control and everything over to something that's just not really real. If it's all down to the algorithm, I've heard so many times, oh, the algorithm doesn't like me at the moment and yada yada. It very much takes all the control away from you and puts it in this thing that we can't really touch and we can't do anything about. Which is really, really not how we want to approach this at all. We want to be in control. The algorithm is not a person who sees all the posts and says, yeah, that's all right, show that to this many people, or no, not that one, or yeah, viral. All the algorithm is kind of the thing that tries to decipher what your post is about so that it can then say, okay, well, for example, this post is about upcycling. I'm going to show it to people who usually watch and engage in upcycling kind of content. After that, it's up to whoever it shows it to decide whether it's worth watching or not. So it's still very much ran by real people. Like, we need to give the clues to the algorithm so that the algorithm knows what our post is about and can therefore show it to whoever it's meant to be for. If we get that bit right and it doesn't do well, then we've put a boring post up. But it may also be the case that maybe what you are posting is good. You're just not giving the algorithm any clues as to what it's about. For example, I see a lot of posts. Let's say I made a bag and my dog was in the background or something. And you know, I was wearing this jumper and I said, here's a bag I made from vintage fabric. Because I didn't really know what I was doing, I wrote a load of stuff like hashtag vintage fabric, hashtag bag, hashtag poodle, hashtag blue jumper, hashtag parrots, because there's parrots on my jumper. And I see people posting stuff like this, like it sounds really weird, but that's really confusing. And the algorithm would be like, okay, so I've got the word bag, poodle, parrot, you know, who's this for? Okay. Because you might say hashtag dog lovers as well. Show it to some dog lovers. They don't respond because it's not for them and therefore they're out. So being really, really clear about what your post is about is really important. And I know that hashtags, they don't work like they used to anymore. But as I say, no one's reading your caption anyway. So when you write your caption, try and write it with the algorithm in mind and use hashtags if you want, because they're great. I used to use them and say like hashtag upcycling. It's got to the point where I think the algorithm knows what kind of account I am by now, so I don't have to really do that. But at the beginning especially, just make it really, really clear to the algorithm exactly what your posts are all about, because only then can it show it to the right people. It's also really important for your account to be really clear what it is as well, because same with the algorithm, if you confuse people, they are just out. Our attention spans are so small right now that we don't want to have to decipher what anything's about or work something out. So if someone comes across your account on Instagram, they need to be able to see really quickly exactly what it is you can do. So don't post pictures of flowers from your garden or your dinner or anything like that, because if they're the first thing that someone sees, they're not going to keep going and saying, what is this about, you know? They're just going to be like, this isn't for me, see you later. It's not harsh as it sounds, it just kind of is the way it is. We're just bombarded with so much information coming from our phones and TVs and screens and everything that it needs to just be clear within a few seconds, otherwise we don't have time for that. So where you have your profile as well, your bio, that needs to be really clear. I used to try and think of like interesting things to say on it, and I remember one time I put like old is the new. I make bags out of old fabric, so I thought, oh yeah, that's quite like, I mean, it's absolutely cringe-worthy now I think about it, but you know, I put that. So imagine if I had like old is the new and then a picture of my lunch, you know, you can see where some confusion may come from there. A really good piece of advice I heard once to do with your bio is to try and write it as if you're telling one person exactly what it is that you do. So my bio, boring as it may sound at the moment, is, hi, I'm Anna and I upcycle vintage and pre-loved fabrics into bags for you, sharing sewing patterns and tutorials for the makers too. I had to get rid of it to put in that sewing patterns bit. I did used to say based in London because I realised I had a lot of people asking whereabouts I was, and also I realised that if I was looking at an account, I would go to their bio to see whereabouts in the world it was, because it's just quite something you want to know sometimes for no reason. So if you can squeeze that in as well, especially if people like what you do, they might want to buy from you, they want to see if you're close by. But yeah, more important to just get who you are and what you do very clearly written down there. And then all of your posts should be about what you do. Hopefully you have a niche. If you don't, then you really should. It's really important to have a niche, and I'll probably do a separate video about that at some point, because there's a lot to say for why. But I mean, it's the obvious kind of thing. It's confusion again, isn't it? Everything needs to be clear. You need to look at your account and try and be really objective and really honest and say, if I just came to this for the first time, would I know exactly what it is that I make? And I'm going to feel really harsh saying what I'm about to say, but it's because I want to be helpful and honest. But I noticed that somebody who watched one of my previous videos had put on their stories, oh, Parrot and Parsnip says I need to have a niche. So my niche is making things that bring joy. And that's lovely, and it sounds, you know, it's lovely, but it's not strong enough. It needs to be, what is it that that you make that brings joy. If someone was to ask, what does that person do? And you say they make things that bring you joy, they would kind of be none the wiser. So just have a think about, try and be objective and have a think about, is it clear exactly what I do? And don't get me wrong, like obviously I used to make anything and everything, and I thought that my niche was the fact that it was all made out of vintage fabrics, but that wasn't good enough. It wasn't strong enough. I had to boil it down to actually just making bags. And the fact that I'm making bags out of vintage fabrics, that then becomes a niche. Okay, so I think we've kind of narrowed it down to kind of just two things that you really, really need to concentrate on right now, which is obviously being really clear and getting rid of any confusion about what it is that you do, who you are and everything. And then letting people see every aspect of your business, really showing them what is going on, who you are, what you're making, why you're making it, with what, where, like just really show them the whole picture and the whole story. This works so much better when you are able to talk to the camera and personally tell them everything. It works so well because also you don't have to write anything, you don't have to try and shove things in people's faces and say, like for example me, I make things out of vintage fabrics, second hand. There's loads of clothes going to waste. The fact that I'm just showing people what I'm making and out of what and stuff, all of the brand messages and what I'm all about just naturally comes through and it becomes very clear. And if you're thinking, oh, well, that's all very well and good, but there's no way I would ever be able to talk to the camera about, I always get messages saying, yeah, but you're really natural talking to the camera and stuff like that. Like I wasn't always, and I hated it and I really didn't want to do it. My previous video was just all about how I gained the confidence to be able to do that. So if that's what you're thinking, then watch that video if you haven't seen it already, because it really is the best way to do. And it's also the easiest and the quickest, which is good. I tell you, it takes me so long. I've started to try and make videos about me. I've started to try and make some of those, videos that you see where someone's making something and it, goes from start to finish and it's all sleek. I try and do them all the time. They take me an age and they do not ever do as well as the ones that take me 10 minutes where I'm talk about whatever it is I've made. But I'm still going to continue doing them because I want to get better and I want to attract makers as well now that I've started doing patterns. So, but yeah, far easier just to say something to the camera. Now that we've got those 2 points, which are kind of like the main things we want to be doing right now in order to grow on Instagram, we can now get to the really good advice of being consistent and how we're going to do all of this consistently. So you want to be deciding like how often do you want to be posting on Instagram. Don't ever listen to what Instagram tells you to do because their main aim is to just try and get you hooked. They do a pretty good job, to be fair, but I know that I started seeing all these things like earn a new achievement by posting 7 days a week on your stories and all of this like they're not going to help you. You need to decide what's going to work for you. Having said that, you do want to be posting fairly frequently in order to grow and to start seeing results, because those results are what's going to be to spur you on to keep going and stuff. So once a week isn't probably enough. I now aim to post a reel every other day. You do need to, I've not even really said this, but it's actually really important. Like pictures are out. They're just not part of your strategy anymore. I aim to post a reel 4 times a week and try and slot pictures in, like maybe a picture or a group of pictures in between that once a week as well. They're not going to be what makes you grow. Yeah, in order to build that audience, it has to be videos. Sorry, that's just the way it is. I would say 4 times a week is probably quite a good thing, quite a good way to start. And you can pick the number that you want to do before. You don't have to say, oh, well, I've got this much time, so therefore I'm going to only do 1 or 2. Pick the number and then we can work out how we're going to squeeze them in. So let's say we're going with 4. I mentioned in a previous video that my account actually grew much faster. I was a lot more organised when I had far less time, because it really forced me into being efficient with my time and being really organised. Also at this time I was listening to Instagram, so I thought you had to post 7 times a week. So, and as I said, I could get like 3 posts out of my bag, so I had to get 4 posts every week from kind of thin air, as it were. What to do is to start brainstorming other things that you can think about. And at first it'll be really hard. You'll be like, I don't know. But the more you start writing things down, they lead on to other ideas, and before you know it, you'll get in a real flow and start probably getting some quite good ideas together. I used to like doing it on my phone because I could do in the notes, you could do on like bullet points, which you could then tick off after. So you could start off writing bullet points of stuff that you talk about, and then you could start thinking about what you would say in that bullet point and writing a few notes in that. I think it really helped that I used to do this on the tube journey when I couldn't really do much else, and it was like my dedicated time to do it. I need to dedicate some time to brainstorming now because I don't have that set time, and it's all kind of gone out the window. And it was actually, I didn't realise at the time, but it was really important to have that brainstorming time. So then you'll have this list of reels that you can make and stuff that you can talk about. So you just now need to factor in when you're going to do this. So however it is that you organise your week and organise how you spend your time with your business, make sure you put in a time where you can record at least 4 reels. And this was just so handy for me because I knew that the only time I was going to have was when I was looking after my son and he fell asleep for a nap. So I could quickly whip out the tripod, stick the camera in, look at this list and just work my way through the list and talking. And I think it also helped quite a lot that I didn't know how long this nap was going to be. So I just had to get on with it. You know, there was no dithering, dilly-dallying around. So that quite helped as well. So think about ways that you can really just make sure you do it. And then if you have another time, like for example with me after that, it would be some tube journeys on the way home. I would be editing the reels. So writing notes on the way in, recording them during these nap times, editing them on the way back. It really worked, and what I ended up having was a constant stream of notes of stuff that I was going to talk about, reels that I had recorded but not yet edited, ones that I had edited and were ready to go, and I just constantly had that stream, and so I constantly had something to post. And it just really, really, really worked for me. Now, it wasn't like it just happened overnight. All of a sudden I was like, whoa, posted the first reel and everything changed. But there was a definite change. As I consistently started posting these posts, and I was noticing that the comments I was starting to get were from real people and they were genuinely interested. They weren't those spammy ones I was getting before. I started noticing that some people were adding me, and then the same name would then add me on Etsy as well. So I was kind of thinking, this is working, like it's heading in the right direction. It was very exciting, and although it may have seemed like small growth at the time, the fact that I was heading in the right direction, I could tell that by the general feel of my account and feel people getting a little bit more interested. That really made me realise that I was doing the right thing, and therefore I just had to keep going. So it was quite easy after that to keep going. But the thing is I think committing to that consistency for a certain amount of time. You won't see if a plan's working unless you kind of do it for a while. But yes, one thing I will also say is that I used to really not like social media. I was one of those people who was like, oh, I've got to post on Instagram, like I hate it. As soon as I changed to, do you know what, I'm gonna make this happen, and I started posting these videos and stuff, and as soon as I started getting a bit more of a response, I've really thoroughly started enjoying it. And that happened like probably as soon as I was getting more of a response, which was soon after I'd kind of changed everything I was doing. Now I really, really love it. And I also think that if somebody is enjoying themselves, it really comes across and it makes the viewers enjoy it even more. So that's kind of accidentally as well turned into this like circle, you know, of me enjoying it, then for the other people enjoying it, and going round and round. I would say in that respect, if you've got any thoughts like me before where you were quite against social media and you were a bit close-minded to the whole thing, try and lose all of that. Try and delve right in and kind of think, do you know what, I really want to enjoy that, because that actually has I reckon, quite a massive effect as well. And also, it's just much more fun to enjoy something that you're doing. All right then, well, I very much waffled on for yet again another load of waffle. What are you gonna do? But I hope you found some of that interesting, and I'll see you hopefully again next week. Not sure what I'm going to talk about next week actually, so if you've got anything you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next week. Bye.